Well, welcome to Hamilton County TV. I'm Perry Williams. Alongside me today is a new head boys basketball coach for the Noblesville Mailers, Scott McCelland. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Appreciate it. You know, I was reading there's a couple things I was reading about today when I was looking up some of your things that you've accomplished in your career. I did not know that you started out as a girls basketball coach back in '95. So
yeah, I did. I was playing at a small school and wasn't very good, and really wanted to keep playing. And then some events took place, and I had an opportunity to go back to my high school, Yorktown, and I went on staff there for 3 years, and then ended up taking the head girls job at Wapahani High School, and was fortunate enough to kind of win a sectional there and kind of get that thing going. But I kind of knew in the back of my mind that as much as I enjoyed the girls and coaching girls basketball, that, you know, I think my long-term goal was to be a varsity boys coach here in the state of Indiana.
Now, basically, it was around 2000 that you started being a boys.
Yeah, I had the opportunity in 2000 to go work for Barry Huckabee at Blue River. And 2001, we ended up going to the state finals, got beat in the championship game. And then, I was living in Indianapolis, and I had to find a daytime job, and I was trying to find something, so I ended up getting hired at Cathedral, and I was a freshman coach and a varsity assistant there, and finally in 2003, had the opportunity to get the Morristown job, and stayed there for 7 years, and had a really good experience and a good run down there, and I think I learned a lot about, I realized too that I probably didn't know as much as what you think you know, but it was obviously a good start for me to start my career at a school like Morristown, and then moved on to Brebeuf, and which was a great experience coaching at Brebeuf. I got to coach P.J. Thompson for 2 years, and he and I have a really strong relationship even to this day. I knew it was a risk going to Brebeuf because of the daytime job situation. They'd cut and eliminated an assistant AD's position. They brought it back, but unfortunately through some budget cuts, my assistant AD job, and there was no classroom position at that time, and I was optimistic that something would work out, but they didn't really want to lay coach, and the more and more is it drug out, and in the end it just wasn't meant to be. So then I was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I ended up going to a football school in Western Boone and coached 3 years there. And I think the thing is that you learn there is you maybe not how to utilize different athletes, maybe that aren't necessarily basketball kids, but the opportunity to go back to Morristown, I almost said home, but in a lot of ways it is home, even though I'm not from Morristown or grew up there. But I always kept an eye on it. And I had a chance to go back the year before I decided to go back. Things weren't totally laid, the cards weren't laid out exactly right, but the next year it did. And, ultimately just the run that we were fortunate to have these last 6 years, and obviously the culmination in 2018 to win the state championship and win 28 games. And it was a very difficult decision because, I since I went back to Morristown, I had no intentions whatsoever of really leaving, and hadn't done anything, hadn't looked at any other jobs. I had a few schools reach out, either just logistically it wasn't right for our family, or we weren't going to move, or, there were some things that I really enjoyed it down there. People love basketball, and, obviously it helps because you're winning, but there's a passion, there's a history, there's a tradition. You think of Jerry Bash, you think of the Wood family, you think of Brady Atkins, and in the 90s, and I look back at a couple kids, Hayden Landcable, scored over 2,000 points. And I think there's only 3 schools in the state of Indiana that have two 2,000-point scorers, and Morristown and Carmel are 2 of them. I'm not sure what the third one is, but so that's ironic, and it's ironic that both of them are brothers. And
I was gonna say,
Dylan and Hayden, but when this came open, I called, made some calls, and did some homework, and just felt like this was something I would regret if I didn't at least pursue and go talk to. And in the end, it just it was a decision I just couldn't turn down.
Yeah, well, good. We're glad to have you here. One thing that I thought was very interesting also was kind of your philosophy about the game of basketball, and how it's not all about basketball. It's building character for these kids and that type of thing. Talk a little bit about that, because it's truly what I believe. So.
Well, I think when you're in this position and you're trying to develop young men, and I think the big thing that I've really tried to encompass here in the last few years, and bringing some of the philosophy that that we've had, is one, to compete. Do everything in your power, your position, to kick, scrap, claw. Put your team in a position to be successful. Great teams have great teammates, and I stole that from Butler. I did. I can't, but I think that that's so valuable to, to supporting each other. Other people. I say this to the boys all the time. Other people's successes are not your failures, and you need to embrace that. You need to promote that. And I think the other thing with that, the life skill with that, is you're going to get hired for how you come to work every day, and your attitude, and people want to be around people that are supportive of one another and encourage one another. And we talk about being coachable. I told them all the time that I tell them all the time that I don't care how high up you get in the corporate world, you're going to have somebody to answer to. And then lastly, is accepting their role. And I think that gets lost in basketball so much, is every position, every player, and every guy that plays has some sort of value to their team, whether it's a 30-minute guy or a 2-minute guy. And we can't emphasize that enough. And those guys that really want to, thrive in their role. So I think those things are all important to develop in a basketball program, but I think they also are important to carrying over to outside of high school basketball, and hopefully putting them in a position, where they're going to be better men as they get ready to, get out of college and get a job and start a family and things like that. But I've just been fortunate. I really have to have so many people that have provided guidance and been friends, and now players that I've been fortunate enough to coach, who now, looking back, are friends of mine, and that have helped me grow, not only as a coach, but more importantly as a person.
Yeah, and I think those are all very important, that you can take the rest of your life. I mean, what you're learning on the basketball floor, you can take in your life, and life lessons every day. And I think that's important. Well, Coach, being the first year here, and of course, your coaching staff, you had to learn them, they had to learn you. How's that worked out? Because I think you got a pretty good staff.
We do. We have a really good staff. I think we've got a lot of carryover from Coach Peck's staff. Obviously, I think first and foremost, you start with Matt Fine. Matt and I've known each other for years. Matt's had a ton of success as a head coach. I think he understands the position I'm in too, so that's kind of nice. Where he kind of gets that. He brings a wealth of knowledge with Coach Harrell and Coach Edwards, and just he's been around the game so much. And then I think Jake Hoffman, who was Coach Peck's JV coach, going to be our JV coach, played for Paul Patterson, and I don't think there's been any finer mind in college basketball, or in basketball for that matter, than Paul Patterson. And and he's spent some time in a couple different high schools, and so I think he brings a wealth of knowledge. And ultimately, Nate Hendrickson, Javis Mason, Justin Dowden are young guys that bring some energy and some passion and some enthusiasm. Lastly, a new addition to Noblesville along with me is Mike Bennett. And Mike and I got to know each other when I was at Brebeuf, and Mike played at Brebeuf. And Mike won a state championship as a player, was an Indiana All-Star, ended up coaching college. Has coached under a couple different college programs, and decided that he wanted to come back and coach in high schools. Been involved in a couple different high school programs. I think he brings a wealth of knowledge. I think a certain player's perspective as well. I think we've got the pieces here of having a really good staff, and guys that we can delegate to and give them some ownership in, and guys that you can bounce ideas off of, and you trust to run practice or a drill, or interact with these kids. So I'm real excited about the guys we've got, and I think we've got a diverse group and what each guy brings age-wise as well. That certainly is something that's real exciting. I think these guys are all good leaders, and more importantly, good role models for our young men.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. Coach, let's talk about, we'll do this during the season also, and let's talk a little bit about this team, because it's a working process, because you're coming in here new, and you have a pretty experienced team. You have some players coming back, and the cupboard was not empty.
No, it's not, and certainly I think obviously there are some pieces that got a wealth of experience last year. I mean, I think you start obviously with E.J. Smith, who's leading returning scorer, and Luke Almodovar. But Preston Roberts played a lot of minutes last year. Aaron Fine, as a freshman, got a lot of minutes. So those guys got valuable time, and hopefully that will give us a little bit of experience and some growth going into the start of this year. And then we've got some new faces, and trying to blend that and blend our style of how we're wanting to play. I think the big thing right now is finding consistency. As we've done some practices, we've had some really good ones, and we've had some moments where we've struggled a little bit. And one thing I've got to help do is it's new to them. So if I say a drill, they may not know the name of the drill that I'm referring to. So I have to keep that in mind. It's not like we're the kids for the last 6 years just knew that. And so I think that's the big thing. I think the big thing is we're just trying to keep some enthusiasm, some energy, some positivity during practice right now as we go through a little bit of the early bumps of the season. And I'm curious to see how we do, what we find out from our scrimmage here later this week.
Yeah, you're going to North Central, is that correct?
We're here.
Here.
We're here
It's North Central
against
Thursday night?
Yes, sir.
All right, that'll be open to the public?
Yeah.
Okay.
6:30 start.
Yeah. And I guess it'll be interesting as the season goes on, and you and I do more and more interviews of what we really see as the identity of this basketball team, because right now with them learning you and you learning them, it's going to take a few games for you to learn the identity of this team. It
is, and I think the big thing is a coach every year. And I don't care where you're at or what your team is, but are you getting better? Are you improving? And ultimately, are you better at the end of the year than what you were at the beginning, and playing your best basketball going in, hopefully, the tournament? And I know some of that's coach speak, but I do. I think the big thing right now is just consistency and trying to make sure we're improving and getting better each and every day. Obviously, when you look at the schedule, there's no easy ones, and But I think our kids are up for that, and I think our coaches are kind of like the challenge of this, and I mean, there's just no easy ones, and so we're gonna have to be on our game every night and ready to play and focused and organized and prepared, because like I said, there's no game for us this year will be an easy out.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule here. I know with the scrimmage coming up and all the different things, it's going to be a challenge this season. So.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I look forward to getting started.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
At dismissal today.